Hi, everybody. Welcome to this Sunday night that brought to you up in Team Bonus Action Land. That this is here for that the double for that the secondary double feature of our bonus roundtable. So, who do I have with me on the panel tonight?
I am Fre
You got Hewitt/Miro.
and Neysa.
Then that this is your host Ninja Spence for bonus roundtable. And before we get up into the meat and then that the potatoes and also the sour grapes of this topic, then that I do want to also say that we still have our donations for the Trevor Project going on, and that for those that don't know, that the Trevor Project is to basically assist those within the LGBTQ plus community that who have been displaced by shitty situations, and then that they are just looking for basically any type of monetary support. It can be a home, it can just be just a place to sleep for the night, even just something for them to eat. Just any kind of donations that help out. Please just basically click the link below the stream, and then that all proceeds will basically go to the Trevor Pro, to the Trevor Project before that the end of March. I mean, sorry about that. Sorry about that. Until the start of March. But today's topic is going to be a topic that basically gave everyone a heart attack, and we are going to get into the OGL talk and that the train wreck that has been. So we are just going to just jump right into it. So y'all have thoughts? What are y'all thoughts about the OGL?
Well, should we break down, Spence, what happened loosely over the last month, and then if anybody hears this, they knew what happened and they followed
Yes.
it.
Mm-hmm.
But just for the sake of if anybody hasn't, that we
Right.
could just you want me to describe the history of what happened, and then we can move into the discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'll work.
Backstory last month. Wizards of the Coast had a leak. Now, initially, a lot of people thought it was an intentional leak, but it turns out no, it was a reporter that was able to get a hold of information. And Wizard released an updated replacement for OGL 1A that has been in existence for 5th edition or the 5.1 SRD or Source Rules Document. There we go. So, what it would have done is stated that going forward, anything created would be liable for a chance for Dungeons and Dragons to demand, and their parent company Wizards of the Coast and their parent company Hasbro to demand some form of financial percentage of printed material that used their core rules, up to 25%, depending on what size company you were, especially if you made over $700,000 in a year connected to it. It was also, if you created anything, they could then use it without your permission or giving you any type of monetary compensation because they used your idea and put it in there. So more or less, if you created anything, they owned it for distribution. Uh, this started to also extend into the description of the brand being put out there in social media, streaming, and all that. Again, mostly for the bigger folks, and not for anything connected to Patreon or donations. But it was a massive fu to the D&D community that has existed. Um, Another part of this is because the CEO of Wizards of the Coast has come from a computer background, a computer gaming background, I believe, and was stating that, or she was at Microsoft, stated that Dungeons and Dragons is under monetized and that more microtransactions needed to happen. This caused a massive backlash from the community to which Wizards of the Coast did not respond for almost a week. Which they then said this was never a final version. It was just a draft. However, there was a contract connected to it. So then Wizards released what was originally that was called OGL 1.1. Then they released another temporary one of OGL 1.2 that did not do anything. They said they did, but the language still meant that they could do most of what they wanted. And that proceeded for a little bit. Then they had what was going to be OGL 2.0, which fixed some of the things, but not many. Still left way too much up in the air about what Wizards could and could not take from the community to put stuff out there using the system. And then that was followed by groups like Paizo were putting together what they were going to call the Orc. I think the Orc is still being worked on. I haven't heard much else about it. But more or less putting Pathfinder 2nd Edition into a open use status that was fiduciaried by a third-party legal equity. In other words, we create a legal entity that technically owns this copyright that isn't going to do anything because this legal entity also doesn't technically exist. All in all, it has caused a massive upheaval in the community. It caused a massive diaspora from D&D Beyond. And it's resulted in the last week or so, the fans won. D&D SRD 5.1 is going to be put into an open use community-based I'm trying to remember the legal term here and I'm drawing a blank, but it's going to be basically put into an open source in perpetuity. OGL 1.1A will be kept in perpetuity. So as of right now, anything that is using 5th edition and 3rd edition and 3.5 can use that system freely without fear of Wizards of the Coast trying to profit off of their work or to pocket your creations without crediting you. And that's where it is. However, that does not mean going forward that one D&D will have the same grace and protection. So I think that is the very, very short-handed version of all the events for the last month. I just know that my YouTube feed still has people sporadically updating and talking about it. And a lot of my D&D channels now are differentiating what they talk about, which is perfectly fine because I'm going to say this before we get into it. Wizards of the Coast ended the second golden age of D&D with what was going to be OGL 1.1. There is no trust there from a lot of people. D&D has lost a lot of followers, a lot of people that wanted to play it, and that was the main game that they played. But the silver lining, to quote Knox, is it's given birth to the second golden age of tabletop, because now people are going to be willing to branch out from Dungeons and Dragons because the parent company decided to poop the bed. Is that an okay summary of everything?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else can chime in if they want to about this summary and then their thoughts about it.
No, what do you feel about it, Spence?
I mean, that was a summary, yeah.
Oh,
I mean, that just pretty much that the way that I feel about it is coming from basically that creative aspect more as a writer slash artist combo. It's basically like, okay, that I create, Zanya, Tristana, Clover, all of these characters that I played and play, and then also run up in my D&D games. If that, Wizards is just like, oh, we have rights to that character. Not necessarily you don't. Underneath your license that you were going to try to monetize off of basically someone else's success, that just as that some of the articles that I've been reading states that like that it is basically them are like looking at these crowdfunding sources that have made have basically made Dungeons and Dragons popular, and then that they are just like, oh well, then that we can try to get us a piece of that pie too. But here is the thing that that they tried to basically grab the pie while it was still hot in the oven without any mitts, and then that they got burned for trying to do so, like heavily, and then that we don't trust them in the kitchen anymore, so to speak.
A friend of mine, I'm gonna leave him anonymous, but when the Eberron uh, playtesting material was still in like the pre-Unearthed Arcana stage, um, Wizards put out like a request for, hey, how about your ideas? You know, what kinds of things might y'all want to see in a cyberpunkish, more technically inclined setting? And my friend um, created something that he dubbed the Warforged, and submitted it as a like idea to be credited. If they chose to use it, he was supposed to be credited. Um, that like survey or whatever was eventually taken down, disappeared entirely from all the places where it had been announced. And a few months later, the Unearthed Arcana for Eberron came out, and lo and behold, there was Warforged in the UA. He reached out, never received any word back, and eventually, when the Eberron books went to print, nothing was ever credited, of course. So this is not the first time, according to him, that Wizards has tried something like this, where they try to outsource without crediting the creative community that plays their games. Um,
S-
so
Connected to what you're saying with that, Neysa, I guess, one of the things I'll start with this is that not crediting someone with creation is very much a Wizards of the Coast thing. You can look at what they've done in the past. It is a massive corporation, and a lot of people forgot that even though we are playing this game, we are creating these worlds, we are telling these stories and cooperating together as DM and player as friends, that Dungeons and Dragons is a product line from Wizards of the Coast, a company, and their job and thought process, goal one, is to make money. When Dungeons and Dragons was still owned by Gygax, and now I'm going to blank. How am I blanking on the company that used to own uh, Dungeons and Dragons? TRC or
TRC.
TRS.
TSR.
TS.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yes,
TSR.
Event-
TSR.
It's because you forgot it. I couldn't remember it.
Yeah, my brain's just like, just throw random letters until it sounds right. Gary Gygax didn't credit people. Like, as much as
Gary Gygax paid some kid $10 to make illustrations.
Yeah. So I mean, it's one of those of, it doesn't surprise me. There is a history of it, and it is annoying, but it's one of those things of, there are shitty people connected to our hobbies. There have always been shitty people connected to our hobbies. And one of those right now happens to be Wizards of the Coast. That, I get it. I get it, is that they have watched Dungeons and Dragons since 2016, 2015 explode in popularity, to where Dungeons and Dragons is part of the zeitgeist of regular culture. It's not just us in my den playing Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons is no longer the trope of in your mom's basement. It has been made into multi-million-dollar corporations, such as Critical Role, Dimension 20, as well as others. But here's the deal. I can see where a company which has no soul, run by people who are only interested in making money, look at this tertiary market made off of their product and go, we need to make more money off of this. We need to do this. And it's like, why did Dungeons and Dragons all of a sudden have official Dungeons and Dragons podcasts? Is because Critical Role and these other ones got so popular. So why not have the officially sanctioned ones from the company that makes the products? Get celebrities involved. So I understand, as wrong as they are, where the mindset started from of we are missing out on a ton of money. But instead of wanting to create or do something themselves, they were going to try to pick the pockets of other creators. And that's the big problem for me. Like, I understand, like, oh, we want to do something like this. I'm like, yeah, go ahead and make your own Roll20. If it works better than Roll20, I might choose to use it. Not now, because you're a bunch of asshats, but make your own. You bought out D&D Beyond because the one you were going to make didn't work. Don't go after anybody else that's doing this unless they're officially licensed with you. Because if they're officially licensed with you, you have a contract. But the heart of OGL 1.1 when it was put out was they saw all these big bags of money that they couldn't get any of because they were not in that market. So instead of creating something that would compete, they wanted to just take from the people who are already doing it because they thought since we made the game, that we're entitled to something. And you're not. The NFL, like, nobody is sitting here coming back saying, all right, well, you're playing my sport, so you owe me more money for playing my sport. No. Also, you can't copyright game rules. Supreme Court set that up over 100 years ago. So I see where, from a completely non-D&D player side of it, corporate thought process, where they thought this was not that bad of an idea. But this also means it's people who have not played the game, people who don't know anything about the game, and honestly, people that don't have a firm understanding of how capitalism and a business fully works. So, now I mean, at the same time, like people mad at Critical Role because Critical Role didn't say anything. They're under contract with D&D. Like, they are under contract. Some of these places, like, you didn't hear anything come out of Acquisitions Incorporated, the folks over at PAX and Penny Arcade, because they are officially licensed and have contracts with them, so they couldn't say anything. But, and I'll shut up here in a second. It's my 100% what this is greed and chicanery that has unfolded for the last month and seemed to end it in our favor. Sorry, I'll step down off the soapbox.
Okay, Neysa, y'all got anything to say?
I've said from the beginning, when all this came out, I lay so much of this at the feet of Hasbro over WotC. Not that, they're blameless or anything. I mean, they're like, okay, we're gonna do it. But as big as Wizards by themselves are, they are under Hasbro, which is one of the biggest companies making this kind of stuff that there is. And I'm sure that plenty of people in Wizards had no problem trying to do this. But I also feel like there's probably a whole lot that do not agree with trying to roll this out. And I'm positive there were plenty of voices trying to tell, the people that are in a boardroom, this is not going to go over well. This is not going to, it's not going to do what you think it's going to do. It's not going to go over well with the people who buy our stuff. But, the people who want to make money, that's what they have focused on. I do like that they did rescind it. I feel like they really didn't have a choice if they wanted the success of D&D to continue in any way. I feel like if they had only done small changes and kept most of it the way they'd planned, or just said, nope, this is the way it's going to be, that it it's just, they've already lost a lot. They've lost a ton, and I think they know that. I didn't appreciate in their first addressing of it the condescension in their statement, which was basically, well, this wasn't written for normal people like you, so you didn't understand what we meant. No, we understand perfectly what you meant. But I do appreciate that they did realize, even if it's just so it doesn't hurt their pocketbook in the future, hey, we need to change this. And I don't think that going forward, this needs to necessarily color everyone's reaction to everything after 5e, because 5e is pretty much safe. I know that I think this is going to do a lot of harm on its own, what they did, because 5e is safe, but anything that's coming after, people aren't going to be interested. They're not, they're going to say, well, we're safe playing, using what came before this, so that's what we're going to stick with. And the only reason that makes me not like it is because it's not going to start making as much money. And Hasbro's going to see that. And we know what happens to corporations when they see something not making as much money, whether it's their own fault it's not or not. So I know that there are people we know that still want to boycott Hasbro altogether, boycott the D&D movie coming out, boycott anything else they do, and I don't at this point really see the sense in that, because for one thing, I want to see the D&D movie, and I'm going to see the D&D movie. People could argue with me that I should or shouldn't, but I'm going to, because that's what I want to go see. I feel like boycotting stuff like that is not going to stick it to the man like some people think it might. Because, again, all it's going to show is a dropped interest, which has already happened, and we're going to continue to see a drop in anything related to this, hobby that we all like so much. So I hate that Hasbro has done so much harm to themselves and to this IP that can make them so much money, because they decided they needed to take just a little step further to make even more money on top of the tons of money they are making and are going to make. And, they'll blame it, just losing popularity, but they did it to themselves. There's no other way to put it in the future. Hasbro and Wizards did it to themselves, whatever goes on from here.
All right, and Neysa.
I mainly wanted to bring up one thing that so there was a big like Reddit mega thread that was put together between when the leak actually dropped on the 7th of January and when things started getting finalized toward Wizards of the Coast saying, okay, we're backing off on about the 13th of January. Um, One of the things from this mega thread was an open letter from an anonymous Wizards of the Coast employee that was sent to D&D Shorts as and a few other different members of the like Twitter D&D communities. Couple of the main things that this anonymous WotC employee had to say was that I've decided to reach out because at my time in Wizards of the Coast, I have never once heard management refer to customers in a positive manner. Their communication gives me the impression they see customers as obstacles between them and their money. The D&D Beyond team was first told to prepare to support the new OGL changes and online portal when they got back from the holidays, and leadership doesn't take any responsibility for the pain and stress they cause others. Leadership's first communication to the rank and file on the OGL was 30 minutes on the 11th. That was the first time they even tried to communicate their intentions about the OGL to employees, and even in this meeting, they blamed the community for overreacting. I will repeat, the main thing this leadership is looking at is D&D Beyond subscription cancellations. So, just apparently the whole, like, culture and perspective from the upper echelons of Wizards of the Coast is literally like Mr. Krabs, money, 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 and nothing else matters. But there are people working in the trenches at Wizards of the Coast, people like this anonymous individual who actually works on the D&D Beyond team, who do love the community and are active members of it and have their finger on the pulse of the community and are far more down to earth than the upper reaches of that company. With all of that, it's throughout this whole thing, it's been important for me to remember that D&D as an intellectual property is made by real people. It's not created by some faceless organization. There are real people, passionate, creative individuals that give their hearts and souls to create this content. Whether or not they are compensated fairly or appropriately is a whole other issue. But there are real people that don't always get remembered, I think. It's easy with something like Critical Role with Dimension 20 to remember that those are real people because we see their faces. With Wizards of the Coast, it's such a big conglomeration that we lose sight of those individuals. So, with all of that, my perspective is there are a number of things to hate about this whole situation, but a complete boycott of the IP will harm more people than it will help. And at least for my games at the shop, when like over the last month, I've had quite a few people that have been, are we going to change system? And I'm like, unless the rest of my games say so, no. Because the system itself is sound. The way that it works makes sense in my brain as a player, as a DM. And I've never forced anyone to pay money to Wizards of the Coast to play in my games. And so I don't see the point in abandoning something that is such a huge part of my life for instability. I mean, it sucks and it is painful that this happened, but there are real people behind that faceless mask that I feel deserve to continue to have a job and continue doing what they love, which is creating content that we then get to enjoy. So that's kind of where I'm at is, yeah, it hurts, but there are real people there that we don't need to be forgetting about, like this anonymous individual.
Right. Well spoken. And that, that all of y'all brought up very good points. I mean, then that, and then I know that Miro had basically said that it is just like that. You cannot regulate the rules of something and then and then you get angry at someone for just, having their own spin to it. That the definition of the open game license, or OGL, states that is a public copyright license by Wizards of the Coast that may be used by tabletop role playing game developers to grant permission to modify, copy, and redistribute some of the content designated for their games, notably game mechanics. However, they must share alike copies and derivative works. Now, just basically from me reading just at this base definition, if that the rules include, let's say, tieflings, for example, then that I decide to call them infernal or else curse, blooded ones in my game or something, that is me modifying the rules for my setting and such, as a creator. And with this, with just that this new OGL nonsense that they tried to spit out, it was basically disheartening. And then it's basically them grabbing a shotgun and putting it to their own foot, in a sense. It's like, why would you do this to your community? That, as that Miro said, that this is the second golden age of just that D&D and tabletop renaissance, almost, in a sense. That you have so many different communities. Me especially being part of the EOC / African American community, like in the 90s, that we would have never even thought of this, of just at this game and such. That a few of us would have, but that the stigma and stuff behind it would have followed us. And then that's basically another topic for another time. But essentially, what D&D Fifth Edition did is basically ran while like other editions also crawled and then ran. And as to Neysa's point, it is basically, that there are workers in the trenches that are basically hearing out the community and want to do for the community, instead of just being that the faceless void of people just wearing their expensive dollar suits that they happen to just wear every single day, and then that they don't know a damn thing about the smaller guys or else the bigger guys. That the folks that are getting mad at Critical Role, Dimension 20, Adventure Zone, as everyone has said, they are legally obligated not to do anything to hurt their own branding and such. I mean, that wouldn't you want to do the same if that you are as big as them? That those deals are tricky. You have to be careful what you say say whenever you have a company backing you for that. And I'm just mainly looking at it from like the creative standpoint, because then that there are a plethora of artists who have created D&D art for about every single thing. And for just basically Wizards to come out and say then that they were going to start, taxing people for doing that, you are just destroying your own fandom. You know, I am not asking people to basically go out as far as in like boycott everything just because of the fact of that they are basically putting us up in like an awkward situation, that which I 100% agree it sucks, which then that it is going to lead up into my next counterpoint. Well, not counterpoint, topic for the panel. What is the future of, WotC D&D1 and all of this, what is this going to be teaching us in the essentially whenever that the years to come with Wizards of the Coast?
I ah,
But go ahead.
I was just gonna say I don't think it's going anywhere. I mean, I I don't see Wizards going anywhere or Hasbro dropping them. I know there are some rumors of Hasbro now thinking about selling Wizards. I don't think that's going to happen. Not with how much crap they have invested in them right now. Um, I think if this has shown anything, it has shown that Wizards can have competition other than Paizo. And no one really bothered to look into that or be so concerned about that. But I think if nothing else, in the coming years, Wizards is going to see a lot more competition with a lot more following and backing than they have in the recent decade or so.
Yeah, to jump off of M's point, Dungeons and Dragons had 80% of the tabletop market before OGL 1.1 was leaked. 80%, meaning that it was miles ahead of any other competition. Now, to be fair, it also has the backing of a massive parent company. That's changed now. Like, nobody needs to think Paizo is a white knight here. Nobody. Paizo is still a large $1 million corporation, but they will respond to their fans more directly. But Paizo sold out of 8 months worth of Pathfinder 2nd Edition in weeks. 8 months of product in weeks because of this OGL. I can't blame them for wanting to jump on this because, again, it is a chance for them to make money. And D&D is going to have a lot more competition. I mean, I'm not going to stop playing 5th edition. I have the books. I paid for the books. There's a good chance I will not buy a future book unless I super want it. And I understand that there's good people that work at the company, but at the moment, I do not want to give you my money because of what has happened. That does not mean I'm going to stop. Like I said, I'm not going to stop playing 5th edition. I mean, I still run a 5th edition game on Monday nights, still playing a 5th edition game on Thursday nights. I'm not going to demand we change anything or do anything. Because something that Wizards can't take from us is, we made this. Yeah, you gave me a rule set. You gave me a manual of beasts to throw at them. You did not write a single bit of my damn story. Or the story that my players are creating in opposition to anything I throw at them. That's not going to change. But I am now going to be more willing to look at other systems. Like, I'm still not 100% sold on Pathfinder 2e. I'm not 100% sold on the secret role that seems to be a cornerstone mechanic of that game. But I also don't know if that's just my DMs wanting to use this new mechanic because it's new and it's different and he loves Pathfinder. I don't have the book. I will be buying a Pathfinder player's guide so I can understand the rules a little bit better. But right now, right next to me is Blades in the Dark, and I'm reading through it. In my wish list is something called Crescendo of Violence, a neon noir role-playing game. I have no clue what this is about, but it's like cyberpunk 1920s. So I want to read that. I want to find out more about it. But before OGL, I might be interested in it, but I might not be as prone because we got a good thing we want to keep using. So I myself am more willing to expand into other systems now, to try other things now. I will glare at several people who are like, oh, I told you. It's like, you can sit down, Skippy. I don't deal with grognacks. yeah, I might try the system you're using now, but being a jerk about it is just not the thing for me. So having more options, being more willing to look into these options, it's a good thing. But I'm not going to stop playing with what I already have. I'm not going to not go see the movie. I might not buy the toys for my child, even though they have D20 Bakugans that turn into like beholders and dragons and owlbears and crap. And here's the deal. Hasbro, the only reason, y'all, that Hasbro has backed off is they watch the number of those subscriptions drop. And it was right before they were to release the most D&D shit that they could ever release. I'm saying t-shirts for normies, pajama pants. Like, we used to only be able to get the ampersand, the D&D dragon pants for pajamas on like Amazon or the D&D store. That shit's gonna be at Walmart when this movie's done. The most accessible to additional materials that is connected to a hobby I love is about to happen. And Hasbro nearly killed this
That's
right
why
before.
I find their timing so weird of
Yep.
doing that.
That's the thing is, the only reason they're backing down is they saw that we are about to release a multi-million-dollar movie. And these are the people who are going to make sure this movie is a success. And they're protesting everything. So,
To me, it reminded me very heavily of the when the Supreme Court document regarding the overturning of Roe v. Wade got leaked.
Yeah.
It only got leaked because it was almost finalized and somebody couldn't sit quiet anymore. That's exactly what it reminded me of. And whoever leaked it, um, like, I feel like as a whole community, we should be very grateful for them because they probably lost their job if they get found out, just like the folks who leaked the Supreme Court doc. Um, One other thing though, while I've got the mic on here, um, the the main thing that the OGL was meant to do and is going to continue to do now that they have backed down is defend the community's rights to the SRD, the system resource document. Um, and that, like, I've gone through it a couple of different times, including the new SRD that they've put out. Um, and all it is the majority of the base level content from the PHB, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and the Monster Manual. The SRD includes all of the racial stat blocks, the building blocks for those, the class blocks, all spell lists, and all of the main content spells, not Tasha's or Xanathar's, I don't think, but the PHB spells and most of the core magic items that are from the DMG. The SRD also includes the main rule blocks from the PHB regarding adventuring and combat, from the DMG regarding adventuring and combat, and of course the monster manual, including all the like NPC and like base monster stuff in the back. Um, what that means is that with everything finally got finalized on the 27th of January. What they did is they put out a survey and like 15,000 people jumped on and said, this is what we don't like for what you're trying to do, and this is what we want to see. And so part of the reconciliation that Wizards did is they applied a Creative Commons license to the SRD. They've made public and published the new SRD 5.1-CC, which basically is just the SRD with the Creative Commons attribution license. And all that does is just solidifies and codifies that the SRD is available for anyone to use in any way, shape, or form, with or without modification, provided you at least put the throwaway line in there of, I got this from the SRD 5.1cc. It protects rather than upends. And that's all that, to me, that's all I ever really wanted once all this started going down, is I just wanted some kind of legally binding soapbox to stand on, and they've done that. Yes, it was like pulling teeth, but they did it. So I mean, I feel like we got what we wanted, and the sooner the community takes a breath and lets themselves move on, the better. Because no, we ain't missing the D&D movie. Like, we've waited 20 years for that shit.
I
True.
agree.
I
I just
agree.
worry that nerds are way too petty and hold a grudge way too hard, and that they're not going to let enough go quick enough, and it's
They are
going to hurt the
petty.
community.
Nerds are kind of, as that Miro says, that they are kind of like either the grognat neck kind of petty, or else then that they are just the stupid kind of petty, and we don't need either of that.
I mean, I say
Because
that as a nerd, so
right,
Well,
same here.
this is the thing is that I play D&D. I
Yeah,
watch Star Wars. I love several different things. I get into anime.
same.
I
Mm-hmm.
avoid the fandom like the plague.
I mean, it is just like the Ruby fandom. I love the concept of Ruby. The fandom can go 7-level fireball for all I care. But to get us back on topic a little bit, it's basically, that we're just at this, that the future of D&D, to me, it feels like, whenever then everything was moving subscription based and stuff, which is like, do I need this though? Do I want this? I feel like that, you know, after that the D&D success movie Moonlight stuff happens and such. That after that the honeymoon suite is over, then that they are gonna try to do like that this D&D 1 stuff again, but
Oh,
I
D&D.
haven't go on.
I was going to say D&D 1 is still in
Right.
place to happen, but I'll let you
Yeah.
finish before I chime in on what it looks like they're trying to do.
I mean that they are trying to push that, but it also feels like to me that, as that we have all, especially you, Miro, had just stated, it's going to be that there's so much competition, and in that with Pathfinder, I kind of do agree with the secret role thing, because it's like, and plus also then I guess then that's stopping me from getting like that my natural 20 on like a insight check or whatever. But at the same time, it's just, we have like other systems that are just like, especially whenever that we share our Monster of the Week podcast, then that they're just like, hey, that we are being noticed, that these small people like us, that it is something big whenever that that a gaming company retweets a smaller person. That is what we need WotC to do, instead of being like, I like money, like Mr. Cramps and stuff.
So, one D&D, everything it looks like they're doing, and from a publishing standpoint, I can understand the concept of moving to a subscription base, because then you do not have to print material. The problem is those prices are not going to change. I cannot allow myself to pay $29.99 to $49.99 for a digital version of a book versus the actual version. But I also do not want to have, okay, well, you're paying $5.99 to $10.99 a month, and they might raise it whenever they wish, because that's what subscription services do, to have access to all this material, have access to our online play platform, or access to our online token making. But it'll be like with Roll20, or it'll be like with everything else. you have access to a very small amount. And if you want more, you have to pay more. And they're sitting there thinking about charging $30 a month for the equivalent of the program that would allow you to have all the access of a dungeon master. $30 a month. Over $300. Excuse me, I got hiccups and burps trying to come out, and it's none of which is good audio wise. $360 a year for me to run D&D games. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to give you my money for that. Also, the fact they're looking at having AI DMs so that somebody could just play Dungeons and Dragons by themselves. I get that might be appealing to some people, but I feel that's just called go play a video game. Part of D&D is that you are at a table with a group, and there is a community of players. Each of us have our own micro community within that. And to remove that seems silly to me, but I'm also not a business person from a multi-million-dollar corporation. So one D&D is something that I'm possibly going to pass on unless it functions differently than what they have advertised so far. Because I missed 4th edition. I never played 4th edition. And they pulled some of this tomfoolery with 4th edition because they wanted to have some type of online platform, and it never materialized. And that's why 4th edition is not protected by the OGL. So it also functions a lot like the skill trees from things like WoW and other online games. So one D&D is something, like I said, I might pass on simply because at the moment, the format it looks like they were putting it out is not palatable to me. So that, and if that is the direction that they want to go with it, it is not an appealing one, in my opinion, to go to a all digital subscription-based type system. Unless I buy the physical book and then I get the digital book for free as long as I put in a code on the website. Problem is they're probably not going to do that because that does not give them all the money that they want.
Yeah, and then that has always been something that it's just like, oh, D&D Beyond, yay! I can put in codes that for, let's see, about 12 books that were roughly anywhere between 30 and $50. Can I get these? And then it's like, what? I gotta rebuy all this stuff just to use it? Like, no, just no. But somebody else can go before I give my thoughts about things. Am or Neysa?
I'm good right now.
There's nothing else that I think really it feels like we're all on a similar page with just some small like personal preferences changing, but um just off of Hewitt's thing about the virtual tabletop thing, Foundry VTT is one of the like biggest and best virtual tabletop softwares out there. Their lifetime access key is $50. That's it. It's it's not that it's not that big a deal, and Wizards of the Coast could offer something similar. Again, provided they have the creative people to actually do it. Um, but they probably won't because they think that they're cream of the crop as far as
They're,
content. So
the stuff they're throwing out there looks more along the ends of Telspire with the 3D. So and then the models that they have thrown out look very, very similar to Hero Forge designs.
Oh, I love
Eh,
Hero Forge.
Oh no, the thing though is like it looked like they took Hero Forge minis and put them into Telspire and used that to show what they were making.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not opposed to anybody creating something new to be competitive in a market to give me more options. But so far, everything they've thrown out does not look as good as what others have already done.
Right. Because that if you look at any type of fan project, especially that the ones that are like that the quote unquote non just anime D&D characters, some of these artists that they look better than the actual official art, and then it's like y'all need to be hiring these guys and stuff to do, like that the art of like characters and whatnot. But that, as that we have all stated, D&D is collaborative storytelling in a sense, and then that Miro said it best, that there is no damn way that any writer worth their salt is going to give Wizards of the Coast access to like the copyright of the worlds that they have created and such. That I can easily swap over my world to another system. Do I want to? No, because I'm comfortable, because of the fact that I am comfortable with just the whole fifth edition system and such. And then I know that me and Neysa that we were talking about, that the folks at DM guild about it, and then that it's just more so like how would that affect, like that the smaller man being like, oh hey, that I have basically got this level 20 commoner class I just want to like release that you get to play a that you basically get to play a farmer with a pitchfork for $2. Is that WotC slash Hasbro is going to try to go after that person for basically for just like this joke class? We just don't that with just at that OGL. It was just all up in the air at that point, but I think that everybody has basically agreed that boycotting it is not the answer, because that if that you boycott something, you will then lose. That the corporation will start to think that people have lost interest, especially if that the only thing that they can see is money, money, money. Any other thoughts we got about this?
I mentioned Hero Forge, so I actually went to Hero Forge because they,
Mm-hmm.
they they do it better. Um, I didn't know this was real, but you can make animals now that are
Yeah. Uh-huh.
yeah. And if you make the frog, there is one that's called Round Boy, like, and that's how you make the frog fat.
Beautiful. That's beautiful.
Just saying, Hero Forge does it better than Wizards of the Coast, Dungeons and Dragons at the moment for creating a 3D token because they can allow you to make a Round Boy frog.
Right. And then that, by all means, I mean that whoever future people listening to this, that that you can just take this as just basically an annal up in tabletop history, and then if we ever happen to like be on like some like retrospective video, I say thank you, because then if we are covering this, living through this, and basically that we basically love our Dungeons and Dragons. WotC and Hasbro, please, please, thank you for basically realizing the error of your ways. And don't ever do something this stupid again, even though that
For
you
God's
will.
sake.
But I do believe that that is all of the thoughts that we have, unless, of course, that, that if that anybody else has just anything to chime in on, I would basically like to thank the panel for joining, and I am going to have it for Miro for our announcements and Frey with our socials.
Announcements. Remember, right now through the end of March, if you donate, it will go to the Trevor Project to help displaced LGBTQ plus youth find places to stay due to shitty life things happening, aka parents. Also helps them get therapy. So if you can, please donate to help them out. Anything and everything is appreciated. Also, we have Holy Winds picking back up tomorrow, and we will have Tears of Kairos this week. So that's what we got scheduled currently. And it's to Fre.
And you can watch all of our previous episodes of all of our games over on our YouTube channel, where it's Team Bonus Action, just like here on Twitch. We are on Facebook and Instagram as Team Bonus Action, and we are at bonus_team on Twitter. Twitter and Facebook are currently the easiest ways to find out when we're going live. We also have our website, teambonusaction.com. You can go take a look and see what we're all about. And I think that's all of them.
And so then I would just like to say thank you again for the panel for joining. And since that Knox isn't here,
Don't
let
don't
me
let your
meatloaf.
meatloaf a little
so
better.
bad.
A little better. We will get it next time.
The
Comment, like,
delay is
subscribe.
kicking my ass.